Right now, as you sit and watch this, 1 in 3 people on this planet will develop cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 3. That is not a pharmaceutical projection. That is a World Health Organization documented reality. But here is the number they do not put on the billboard. Inside your body, at this very moment, your immune system is identifying and destroying precancerous cells every single day. The question is not whether cancer cells exist inside you. They do. They exist inside all of us. The question is, who is winning? And for millions of people, people who feel completely fine, who eat what they believe is a decent diet, who walk the dog and sleep 7 hours, the answer is shifting in the wrong direction. Silently. Without a single symptom. Here is what is happening at a cellular level right now that nobody is talking about in plain language. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, the kind you cannot feel, the kind that does not cause a fever or obvious pain, is slowly degrading your cell membranes. It is sending corrupt molecular signals into your DNA. It is creating what scientists call a tumor microenvironment, a warm, sugar-rich, oxygen-starved interior landscape that cancer cells are biologically engineered to exploit. This is not a theory. This is a documented reality. Published. Peer-reviewed. Sitting in the archives of the New England Journal of Medicine and Nature Reviews Cancer. And yet, when was the last time your physician spent 15 minutes explaining the relationship between what you ate for breakfast and your cancer risk? When did they walk you through the difference between a pro-inflammatory omega-6 fatty acid and a tumor-suppressing omega-3? They did not, because that conversation does not fit inside a 7-minute appointment window, because there is no billing code for this conversation. Stay with me. What you are about to learn could be the most important 17 minutes of your biological life. I want to be careful here because I respect the physicians who are genuinely trying. I trained alongside them, I understand the constraints they operate under, but I also understand the architecture of the system they are embedded in. And that architecture is not designed to keep you healthy. It is designed to manage your illness. Nobody in a white coat will tell you this because it is uncomfortable and because the incentive structure punishes honesty. When you are healthy, you generate no revenue. When you return with a prescription renewal, a follow-up scan, a referral to a specialist, that is when the machine moves forward. Chemotherapy drugs, targeted biologics, immunotherapy agents, these are extraordinary tools, and for many patients they are life-saving. I do not dismiss them. But the average oncology appointment does not include a conversation about sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts. It does not include a discussion about how lignin-rich flaxseed can modulate estrogen receptors and reduce tumor proliferation in hormone-sensitive cancers. It does not include a breakdown of how butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid produced when your gut bacteria ferment resistant starch, literally triggers apoptosis, programmed self-destruction, in colorectal cancer cells. That data exists. It is not fringe. It is not naturopathic speculation. It is mainstream biochemistry. And the system is built for revenue, not wellness. Which means the conversation about your kitchen is happening here, not in a consultation room. The system profits from your return visits. Your kitchen, your daily habits, your understanding of your own biology, those belong to you. And nobody can put a billing code on that. Before we go deeper into the biology, but because we are going deep and you deserve the full picture, I want to ask you something. We are building toward 100,000 subscribers, one honest video at a time. Every single one counts. If you have found your way to this channel because you are tired of being talked at and never talked to, hit subscribe right now and tap the like button. Not for me. Because the algorithm punishes honest medical content and rewards clickbait, the like button is how we push back. Now, let us go inside the body. Imagine you are looking through a microscope. Not a general microscope, but a transmission electron microscope, the kind that lets you see the architecture inside a single cell. What you are looking at is the endothelium, the single-cell thick lining of your blood vessels. It is the most overlooked organ system in mainstream medicine. It covers a surface area equivalent to 6 tennis courts inside your body, and it is the first battlefield where inflammation either wins or loses. When chronic inflammation is present, triggered by processed seed oils, refined sugar, chronic stress, or environmental toxins, the endothelium becomes what researchers call dysfunctional. The endothelial cells begin to express adhesion molecules. White blood cells stick to the vessel walls. Oxidized LDL particles burrow under the lining. The once smooth, frictionless surface becomes sticky, rigid, and permeable. Nutrients that should reach your tissues get blocked. Immune surveillance at your body's cancer patrol becomes sluggish. Now zoom deeper into the cell nucleus. Inside that nucleus, your DNA is wrapped around proteins called histones, coiled into structures called chromatin. When inflammation is high and oxidative stress is unchecked, free radicals, rogue oxygen molecules, strike the DNA strand. They break it. Sometimes the break is repaired correctly. Sometimes a copying error slips through. When that error involves a gene that regulates cell growth, a proto-oncogene, or a tumor suppressor gene like BRCA1 or TP53, the consequences compound across every subsequent cell division. This is not abstract. This is measurable. Researchers can test your urine for 8-hydroxydeoxyguanosine, a biomarker of oxidative DNA damage, and get a real-time reading of how much molecular vandalism is occurring inside your genome right now. Now here is where the vagus nerve enters the picture. And this is the part most physicians have never connected to cancer biology. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in the human body. It runs from your brainstem down through your chest, your heart, and deep into your abdomen, touching every major organ including the gut. It is the primary conductor of your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest, digest, and repair mode. When your vagus nerve tone is high, meaning the nerve is firing regularly and efficiently, it releases acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that actively suppresses the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6. High vagal tone is directly associated with lower systemic inflammation, more efficient immune surveillance, and, documented in peer-reviewed literature, reduced tumor progression in multiple cancer models. When vagal tone is low, because of chronic stress, poor breathing habits, sedentary behavior, or gut dysbiosis, the brake on inflammation is released. The fire spreads slowly, quietly, while you feel fine. And cancer cells, and particularly aggressive phenotypes, have evolved to exploit exactly this inflammatory environment. They do not grow in isolation. They manipulate their local microenvironment through a process called autolysis of surrounding tissue, releasing enzymes that break down the extracellular matrix, the biological scaffolding your cells are embedded in. This is how tumors invade. Not brute force, biochemical manipulation. They reshape the terrain to favor themselves. Your job, your biological imperative, is to reshape it back. Let us deal with one of the most damaging myths in cancer nutrition before we go further. You have almost certainly heard the phrase, sugar feeds cancer. And you have probably been told by someone, perhaps even a physician, that this is a misconception, that all cells use glucose, and that eating sugar does not meaningfully accelerate cancer growth. That dismissal is not fully honest. Yes, all cells use glucose, but cancer cells use it differently. In 1927, Otto Warburg documented what is now called the Warburg effect. Cancer cells preferentially ferment glucose into lactic acid, even in the presence of oxygen, an extraordinarily inefficient process that requires them to consume glucose at up to 200 times the rate of normal cells. This is not a theory. The PET scan you would receive during cancer staging works precisely because of this effect. Radioactive glucose is injected, and cancer cells light up because they consume it voraciously. A landmark paper published in The Lancet Oncology confirmed that elevated blood glucose and insulin resistance are independently associated with increased risk for multiple cancer types. including pancreatic, colorectal, and breast cancers. So when someone tells you that dietary sugar has no relationship to cancer, what they mean, charitably, is that eating a single candy bar will not cause a tumor. What they are glossing over, dangerously, is that chronically elevated insulin, driven by a high glycemic diet, creates the hormonal and inflammatory environment in which cancer cells thrive, resist apoptosis, and proliferate. This is not a theory. It is a documented reality, and your fork is one of the most powerful metabolic tools you have. Now, here is what you can actually do, starting tonight, using ingredients that cost almost nothing and that sit in your grocery store with zero pharmaceutical markup. The DNA Defense Protocol, Dr. Wilson's 3-part daily stack. You will need 2 tablespoons of whole golden flaxseed, not pre-ground. Whole. Place them in a small glass jar with 6 ounces of filtered water at room temperature, approximately 68 degrees Celsius or 20 degrees Celsius. Do not use hot water. Add a pinch of coarse sea salt, cover and soak overnight, a minimum of 8 hours. In the morning, the flaxseed will have released a thick, gel-like mucilage. This gel contains soluble fiber and lignans, specifically secoisolaricurcinol diglucoside, or SDG. Your gut bacteria convert SDG into enterolactone and enterodiol, which are phytoestrogens that directly compete with excess estrogen at receptor sites in breast and prostate tissue. Published research in the British Journal of Nutrition demonstrated that daily flaxseed consumption reduced tumor growth markers in women with newly diagnosed breast cancer within just 32 days. Consume the entire soaked preparation, gel, seeds, and liquid, first thing in the morning before any other food. On an empty stomach at body temperature, approximately 98 degrees or 37 degrees C, the gut lining absorbs the lignans with significantly higher bioavailability. At midday, prepare a small bowl. 1/4 cup of raw, unsalted pumpkin seeds combined with a 1/2 cup of cooked, cooled buckwheat groats. Cooling the buckwheat is not aesthetic preference, it is biochemistry. Cooling cooked buckwheat increases its resistant starch content, meaning your gut bacteria ferment it into butyrate rather than it being absorbed as glucose. Butyrate, as mentioned, is a documented inducer of apoptosis in cancer cells. Pumpkin seeds are extraordinary. They are dense in zinc, critical for DNA repair enzyme function, and in cucurbitaceans, compounds that have been shown in laboratory studies to inhibit the JAK-STAT signaling pathway, one of the primary survival mechanisms cancer cells hijack to avoid destruction. To this mixture, add 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. Then, and this is non-negotiable, add 1/8 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. Turmeric without black pepper is like a key without a lock. The active compound, curcumin, has less than 3% bioavailability in the human gut on its own. Piperine, the alkaloid in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. That figure comes from research published in Planta Medica. No pepper, no protocol. 2 hours before bed, prepare 12 ounces of warm water. Again, body temperature, 98, 100 degrees or 37 degrees C. Add the juice of 1/2 a fresh lemon and 1 teaspoon of raw apple cider vinegar. Stir. Drink slowly over 10 minutes. This preparation does several things. The warm temperature matches intestinal fluid, allowing the solution to move through the gut without triggering cold shock reflexes that slow peristalsis. The lemon provides D-limonene, a compound that has demonstrated the ability to induce phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the liver. The enzymes responsible for neutralizing and exporting carcinogenic metabolites. The apple cider vinegar modulates post-meal blood glucose response and supports the acid-base environment required by beneficial lactobacillus species in the colon. Now, put your hands on your abdomen. We are going to do what I call the visceral activation sequence. This is not yoga, this is mechanics. Your lymphatic system, unlike your cardiovascular system, has no pump. Your heart drives blood. Nothing drives lymph except movement, breath, and gravity. When lymph is stagnant, Immune cells cannot circulate efficiently. Metabolic waste accumulates in the interstitial fluid surrounding your cells. The environment becomes more hospitable to abnormal cell behavior. Here's the exercise. Sit upright. Place your right hand flat below your right rib cage and your left hand flat on your lower left abdomen. Apply moderate, firm pressure. Now move your hands in a clockwise circular motion, following the anatomical direction of your large intestine. Ascending on the right, across the transverse colon, descending on the left. 12 slow rotations. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 8 counts. The extended exhale activates the vagus nerve directly. This is not metaphor. It is the documented mechanism behind slow-breathing parasympathetic activation studied in cardiac and oncological research. After 12 rotations, stand up. Rise onto the balls of your feet. Heels completely off the ground. Hold for 2 seconds, then drop. Let your heels strike the floor with moderate force. Repeat 15 times. This is the heel drop, a technique used in rehabilitation medicine to stimulate bone density and lymphatic circulation simultaneously. Gravity is your ally. Each controlled drop sends a compressive wave up through the skeletal system, milking the lymphatic vessels embedded in the periosteum of your bones. This takes 4 minutes. Do it every evening after your warm water preparation. 4 minutes of mechanics that no prescription can replicate. I want to tell you about a man I will call Anatoly, 63 years old, a retired civil engineer. He came to my clinic 2 years after being told by his oncologist that his PSA levels, prostate-specific antigen, were something to watch, but not yet actionable. He was sent home with a pamphlet and a follow-up appointment in 6 months. Anatoly was a man who trusted the system completely. He ate what he believed was a reasonable diet. He was not obese. He exercised twice a week. And for 18 months, he watched and waited. And at each appointment, the numbers crept. He was not offered a conversation about diet. He was not told that refined carbohydrates drive insulin-like growth factor 1, a hormone that prostate cancer cells use as a direct growth signal. He was not told about the published evidence on pomegranate extract and PSA velocity. He was not told that his chronic stress, caring for an ailing spouse, was keeping his cortisol elevated and his immune surveillance suppressed. He found this channel. He implemented the protocol you just heard. He began the abdominal massage and heel drops. He removed seed oils and refined sugar. He added ground flaxseed, pumpkin seeds, and buckwheat. Within 4 months, his PSA velocity, the rate at which the numbers were climbing, flattened. His inflammation markers dropped. He returned to his oncologist, who was, in his words, pleasantly surprised. Anatoly was not cured by broccoli. He was not a miracle. He was a man who finally received information that should have been offered to him on day 1. The system failed him. His kitchen did not. I want to ask you something before we close. How old are you? Write your age in the comments below. Just the number. Nothing else needed. I am not asking out of curiosity. I am asking because the biological mechanisms I described today, DNA repair capacity, vagal tone, gut microbiome composition, lymphatic flow efficiency, all of these change across decades of life. A 34-year-old needs a different emphasis than a 67-year-old. The protocol is adjustable. The conversation needs to be tailored. When I see your age in the comments, that data helps me shape the next video specifically for your physiology, your risk profile, your hormonal landscape. This community becomes the research, so write your age right now and read what others are sharing. You may be surprised how many people your age are navigating exactly what you are navigating. I want to close with something I need you to hear clearly. Everything in this video is designed to work alongside your medical care, not instead of it. If you have a cancer diagnosis, if you are undergoing treatment, if you are on prescription medication, you do not replace any of that with flaxseed. You do not skip your oncology appointment because you started heel drops. You add these tools to your arsenal, you bring this information to your physician, and you have an informed conversation. Nutrition is not medicine, but the absence of nutritional wisdom is a form of negligence. both systemic and personal. You now have information that most people never receive. The flaxseed costs less than $1 a week. The buckwheat costs almost nothing. The pumpkin seeds, the turmeric, the warm water, the 4 minutes of abdominal massage. These require no prescription, no insurance authorization, no prior approval. What they require is you, your attention, your commitment, your willingness to take your own biology seriously at a level the system was not built to encourage. I profit from you not needing me anymore. That is the only metric I care about. If this video helped you, share it with someone you love who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you have not. Leave your age in the comments, and I will see you in the next one, where we go even deeper.